Hey y'all, it's Willow. I was just talking to myself and I thought I'd record it because I haven't recorded any content lately. It's not been a priority for me, especially because I've been in a manic episode, but I was just saying, Willow, you did awesome today. I'm so proud of you. You did what you needed to get done. You put in the work for your school. You fed yourself, you took your medicine, you even went to the store because you noticed that you were getting way too anxious and jittery from drinking regular coffee. And so you went and bought yourself some decaf for your new espresso maker. And I think that was really kind of you, even though you were feeling like you didn't have enough time and that it might be taking up too much of your energy. Ultimately, it ended up working out, and I'm really glad that we made that decision because we were really feeling kind of shitty from consuming too much caffeine today and the past couple days. And I just realized, like, okay, this amount of caffeine is not sustainable for me. And so I'm going to get some decaf, and I did. So thank you for making that decision for us and still getting your work done. You easily could have been like, oh, I went to the store, I'm exhausted, I don't want to do anything. And that is how we felt when we got home. But instead, we just got to work and we did it. And I'm also really proud of myself because I didn't give up when I wanted to. I wanted to give up around 10:30. I started on my school at about 8. And so I had been working for 2.5 hours and I was feeling really tired. And I did allow myself to take a break because that's healthy to rest. But I was able to, after my break, I really didn't want to keep going. And I was like, oh, I love this lighting. I was like, you know what? Do I really have to do this tonight? I'm just going to leave it till tomorrow. Like, I can just do it tomorrow. But then I was thinking, I didn't think about this directly, but my old mentor, she gave me this plaque that she made for me before we had to part ways and she went to another job. And it says, do something today that your future self will thank you for. And I kind of thought about that. And I was like, I could put this off until tomorrow, but that would be more work and more stress for future me. And like, I already have a 4-hour lab that I have to do tomorrow. And so I made a deal with myself and I was like, how about we do, it's called like the 30-minute rule. And whenever we are not wanting to do our homework, when we still have homework to do, and we're wanting to put it off, how about we at least just put in another 30 minutes? That's all we have to commit to is half an hour. That's a manageable, reasonable amount of time that we can sit down and work on something. And at the end of the 30 minutes, if I want to stop, I will stop. And at least I worked on my projects that much more so that I won't have to do that work that I got accomplished tonight, tomorrow. And it's a way for me to like build momentum because I kind of operate in terms of momentum a lot of times. Like, it's really hard for me to get started, but once I start, I like plow through. And once I get going, it's like, I sometimes don't even want to stop. I'm like, let me just go on to the next thing. And, I do have to be conscious of taking breaks. Like, for example, like I said, I worked for 2.5 hours straight which I probably should have taken a break, maybe at like an hour and a half, but sometimes I'm afraid of losing that momentum. My pole. So yeah, it's a way of building momentum. And then what I thought would happen happened, which is I got to the 30-minute mark, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep going. Well, actually, I did end up taking a break after 30 minutes. Was it after 30? No. Sorry, I'm remembering incorrectly. I had put in 30 minutes of work on this assignment, and then that after the 30 minutes, that was when 2.5 hours had gone by, and I realized I needed a break. And so I took a little rest, did some other things, just to like get my mind off of things. Because rest doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be doing nothing. Like, just do something that fills you up or like sustains you. And so for me, like often like that's journaling. I did some journaling. I did a little planning because I like planning things. I did a quick 1-card tarot reading. That was nice. I think I like changed my trash or something like that. So yeah, rest can be, you can still be active while you're resting, you know? It doesn't have to be. I feel like in this society, we're taught that rest has to be a certain way. Like you have to be doing nothing. You have to be like laying down. You have to be sitting in a certain way. You have to be, you know, like no distractions, nothing on your mind. And I just don't think that's a sustainable or realistic form of resting, especially for neurodivergent people who are ADHD or autistic or both like me. Like resting for us can be, you know, engaging with their special interest. Actually, I remember what I did for my 30-minute break. I watched an episode of Avatar the Last Airbender, and it was so nice. You can see my Avatar poster right here. Or my, what is it called? A flag? A banner? I don't know. But I actually watched just one episode of Avatar. It was season 2, book 1. No, I said that wrong. Season 2, episode 1. So book 2, episode 1. And it was about, and it also was like, it was a good rest for me. But I also find that when I watch like stuff that I used to watch as a kid, I gained so much more understanding about the subliminal messages that were in it. And I learned so much like about myself, like seeing how the characters that I related to, how they've changed over time. Like something that I noticed is growing up, Azula was my favorite character, and I felt really connected with her, and I really aspired to be like her, because she was just so perfect and put together, and like she was a prodigy, you know, like a firebending prodigy. She was always like, she made everything look so effortless, and she was so skilled. And those were things that I really valued whenever I was younger. Because I really valued that perfectionism. And for me, it was a coping strategy. You know, trying to earn the love of my dad that I wasn't getting at home. And I thought that if I just accomplished this, if I just was perfect enough, then he'd finally love me, you know? And obviously it didn't work. And these feelings of perfectionism are very deeply rooted, and I still experience them today and have to be conscious of reminding myself that that I don't need to be perfect. So anyway, I really, it's really crazy how the characters that I relate to in the show have changed. And in season 2, episode 1, she's like doing her lightning thing, like in front of the old sages that are her kind of like her mentors or whatever. And you know, I always loved her lightning bending, like, you know, like she'd be like that was so badass. It was my favorite thing. Like, I always wanted, like, I loved the lightning. I would always pretend to be her. Like, we would be playing on the trampoline, because we had a trampoline at my house, and I was very, like, aggressive and violent as a child, but we would play this game. We would do a fight, like a play fight, and we had, like, soccer balls that were on the, soccer balls and other types of balls that were on the trampoline, and each one would be like a different element, and we would like pick characters. Like usually it was like me, my little brother, and my friend Edwin, who's my neighbor, and we would pick our characters, and then based on the character we chose, we kind of had to stick with that element. So like we can only use a specific ball, you know? And I would always be Azula, and I would like, we were all in like kind of like karate as well, so we did like hand-to-hand combat. Looking back, I definitely like used it as a way to make myself powerful. I was the oldest child, and I was a few years older than both my brother and my friend, and so I was like physically bigger and had more strength. And so looking back, you know, I was just kind of like getting my aggressive impulses out, and it wasn't the most healthy way, but it was, and a lot of times it ended up like with one of them crying, usually my brother, because I went a little too far and I couldn't control myself. But anyway, I would always be Azula, and when I would fight, I would do this, because she always uses her 2 fingers to lightning bend. So I'd be like I would be like, because like I was in martial arts for a long time. I'd like have my, and like have like my pressure points, like, you know, like right here, right here. I also really liked Ty Lee, the chi blocker, and so I would mimic hers as well. Like I would do like a bunch of jabs, like really fast in my fighting style. So I think it's very telling that I related to the villains when I was growing up. But, so anyway, that's the backstory. But now I realize that, like, I never really related to Zuko growing up. But as an adult, I relate so much to Zuko. And I realized that he was like a really good representation of me, though I didn't know it at the time. I'm a lot more self-aware now, and so I can like see this now. But at the time, I wanted to be like Azula, even though I was really more of a Zuko. So like, I molded myself into being Azula. And I also think, I'm not sure if this is the right word, I think it is, called an introject. And it's like in the plural community, like if you have a dissociative disorder, or like dissociative identity disorder, and you have multiple parts, there's this thing that happens where you watch a show, and when you really relate to a character, you introject them into your mind, and they become part of your system. And I definitely have an Azula in here, okay? I also loved Katara and Ty Lee, and yeah, but it was very influential on me growing up. But now I just realized that my life story is really similar to Zuko, and like just the things he was saying in this episode about, like, basically Azula comes and she's like, father changed his mind. Family is suddenly very important to him. He wants you home by his side, Zuko, where you belong. And Zuko, like, totally believes it. And, like, I see so much of myself of the, like, giving people the benefit of the doubt, wanting to believe their goodness, even when it's completely unrealistic. And, like, if you listen to the way Azula was talking, it was completely manipulative. Like, you could tell it was not genuine. She was putting on a show. And Iroh, of course, realizes that. But Zuko can't see it. He's too caught up in the enticing thought that his dad actually changed his mind and realized that he loves him, even though that was never gonna fucking happen. It was never gonna happen for him. And so he believes her and then goes. And then, so that's one of the aspects that I learned from in this episode. Sometimes I want to work on this in the future. I find it really difficult to turn off my analytical mind and my introspection and just to, like, do something just to do it, or, like, watch the show just to watch it. Like, I'm always thinking of, like, the deeper meaning, and I think that's a lot of that is, part of it is just who I am, and another part of it is a trauma response, because one of the things I experienced growing up is that my dad, I would get in trouble constantly, nearly every day, and I would be isolated in my room for several hours each day, usually, unless I was having a good day. But it just seemed like I was always in trouble. And I was telling my grandma how one of my intro jecks is Princess Fiona from Shrek. And the reason I felt so related to her is because she was locked away in her tower. And I felt like I was her, locked away in my tower all the time. So I really related to her. But basically, I would be in trouble from, like, fighting with my brother, and it wasn't like a one-sided thing. My parents kind of made it out to be that, like, I was bullying him, and, like, I always had it out for him, and I was always so mean to him. But they would completely ignore the fact that he was antagonizing me and bullying me and instigating the situation. And yes, it was wrong of me to snap and hit him, but I snap and hit him for a reason. It was out of defense to make him stop berating me verbally, or oftentimes he would attack me physically as well. But my parents had this really dumb rule that if I laid any hands on him for any reason, no matter what he did, I was the one in trouble because I was the older sibling. And so, like, a consequence of that today is that I was conditioned out of defending myself, and I'm really scared that one day I'm gonna need to defend myself, but I'm not gonna be able to, because I had to repress that urge for, like, so long. Another thing is, like, when I do snap, I snap, and, like, I can't control myself, and I'm afraid it might have a negative consequence for me as well one day if I lost control and accidentally hurt someone, even if I was acting in self-defense, So that's kind of one of my fears. But anyway, with that being said, so I was either in trouble from fighting with my brother, from disrespecting my parents. I say disrespecting in quotes because my dad had a very fragile ego, and any, like, just mild disagreement or, like, anything that wasn't complete submission was viewed as disrespect. So even if, like, I just had a disagreement of an opinion, or, like, I just spoke up for myself when something wasn't fair, I was in trouble. On top of that, I had a lot of behavioral issues as an undiagnosed autistic and ADHD child that I didn't receive any help for, and my elementary school teachers really demonized me and made me out to be like a really horrible person because of these behavioral issues, mostly like disruptions, like from talking too much, being like hypersocial, hyperverbal. As you can tell, I'm hyperverbal because I've been talking for 20 minutes straight, and this was true when I was a child as well. But basically, I had an agenda, like a daily agenda that the teacher would have to sign and write like a report of what my behavior was that day. And usually it was disruptive. Usually I got into it with other kids and, ended up having emotional outbursts and stuff. And so usually it was a negative message and I would get punished for it when I got home. So like, instead of getting the help that I needed, I was punished for my autistic traits. And yeah, so basically the point of the story is when I was punished so much, my dad would say to me, go and think about what you've done until you figure it out. Like, until you figure out what you've done wrong. Like, think about what you've done. And so this was a pattern that was enforced daily, is like being left with really huge emotions, like from being super dysregulated and like oftentimes like being attacked like by my brother and stuff, or by other kids at school, or by my teachers. It was just like I was constantly getting punished. And I would have to think about it a lot. And so that led to like a really solidified neural pathway of rumination. And especially when things tend to go wrong, rather than like feeling actually my emotions and processing through them, I just intellectualize them and hyperanalyze them. And it's honestly kind of like an escape. So something I want to work on in the future is being able to like just sit with my emotions without necessarily having to describe them or explain them, and just letting the bodily sensations and the emotions that I'm feeling be enough, So yeah, that was a long-winded point, but basically that is part of the reason why it's really hard for me to do anything without deeply analyzing it. And I don't necessarily view it as a bad thing. It's just a coping mechanism that I developed. It doesn't have to be good or bad. What I will say though is that it certainly does get in the way a lot of times of me truly feeling my emotions somatically. So, although I don't want to completely eliminate this pattern from my life, because I love the insights that I have on things and it feels really good to explore things at a deep level, I do want to practice just feeling my emotions. And I might, bring that up with my therapists. I have a couple therapists. I actually might get another one. I have like a general therapist, and then I have a nightmare therapist because I experience really traumatic nightmares, night terrors, usually every night. And I just needed a whole nother person to process that with. But I'm thinking about getting a sex therapist because my sexuality has been really repressed my entire life. And like, though I'm honest about my sexual orientation now, a lot of aspects of my sexuality are really repressed. And yeah, I just kind of want to work on that. And like, I feel uncomfortable talking about sex. I feel a lot of guilt and shame. And I want to just explore that in a safe place. So I'm thinking about seeing if I can get one of those. Not that I can't do this with my current therapist as well, but sometimes I think like when the topic is so big and broad and encompasses so many different facets of my life, sometimes I think it's best to like contain that work within one person, or like mostly, you know. And that doesn't mean that like I'll never talk about sex with my other therapists, but like for the most part, I'll keep it with this therapist, you know? So yeah, I've talked for a while. I'm also like still coming out of my manic episode. I realized that stopping smoking weed manifests as a manic episode for me. Usually when I am smoking, I'm in a depressive episode, and I am completely out of touch with what I enjoy doing. And then whenever I stop, it's the complete opposite, and all that energy that I've been repressing comes back up. So I'm on the tail end of that. And I think one of the other messages that I got from Avatar was, so in season 2, book 1, basically this guy named General Fong is trying to induce the Avatar state in Aang so that they can like go kill the Fire Lord right now. And if you're not aware, which honestly, if you're following me, you need to watch Avatar, like, because I'm gonna mention it so much, like, you need to have a basis. I can't be the one educating you about Avatar. You need to educate yourself. But basically, the Avatar state is basically where the Avatar is the most powerful, and they have all the power of their past lives coursing through them, and they can bend super powerfully and like, you know, like make volcanoes explode, like make a tsunami. You know, one Avatar used the Avatar state to split an island off of the mainland and bring it into the sea. You know, like you could make like a tornado, like all these things. And I really saw the Avatar state as a metaphor for being manic. And like kind of like you have all the energy of your past lives coursing through you, and like similarly when I'm manic, I have all the energy that I've been repressing, and I'm a very energetic person, like available at my fingertips, and I can do really great things, and I have really great insights, and I like have all these things that I want to do, and all of this stuff. But the thing is, when you're in the Avatar state, you're at your most vulnerable, because if you get killed in the Avatar state, then the Avatar cycle stops and the Avatar is not reborn. And what I see that as symbolic of is when you're in a state of mania, you can have really the consequences of your decisions and the magnitude of the decisions you're making can be really severe. They can be life-altering. For me, it quite literally led to my last big manic episode. Literally, I spent $8,000 on an online course that I didn't take. I moved across the country, moved out of the country actually, and thought I was never gonna come back. And because of that, I gave away my $5,000 car. And basically I had to fund all of this. I used this mutual fund that my grandma, who had passed, had put aside for me. And so I spent it really recklessly and irresponsibly. And it has had irreparable effects on my life. To this day, I don't have a car. 4 years later, I have not been in a financial situation where I can afford one. And like, if I hadn't been manic, I could have given my car to my parents and had them keep it for me until I came back. But I didn't think I was coming back. So anyway, and I had used up all that money, which led to me not having any money, which led to me being homeless. So, and I literally almost killed myself. I thought of jumping in front of a train every single day that I was homeless. And my goal each night was to just make it back to the shelter alive. I would like walk across the street without looking because I genuinely didn't care if I lived or died. So I almost lost my life in many ways, and I exposed myself to many traumas as consequences of huge decisions that I made when I was manic. And now, at the time, I didn't realize that I was going through a manic psychotic episode. My mom kind of tried to tell me, but I didn't believe her. Like, I was like, no, that's not happening to me. And I was just really unaware of what I was going through. Now, I'm happy to say I'm much more in tune with my mental health. And, like, I can recognize when I'm manic. And so I know to be cautious about making big decisions. Like, for example, in this episode, though it's definitely not as intense as that episode years ago, I did almost make a big decision that would have jeopardized my recovery most likely and led to a relapse. I decided not to make the decision after consulting with some friends. I'm really glad that I did that, and family. So, like, it helps me, like, when I'm having a manic episode to realize that I'm gonna have, like, really big impulsive decisions and to, like, use my friends and family and my support system as a grounding energy and a way to, like, bounce things off of and, like, should I do this right now? And my friend was like, no, you should not. And I was like, at first I was like, oh, I still want to do it. And then I thought about it for a couple hours and then I was like, you know what? She's right. And part of my hyper independence is that I hate taking advice from people, but I'm trying to change that and be able to take advice from people I trust and recognize that they have my best interests in mind. So yeah, that is the lesson that I learned from Avatar. Basically, Katara was saying, like, Aang, there's a right way to do this and there's a wrong way to do this. And, like, if you want to throw away all the work that we've been putting in, go ahead. The way to do it is through discipline and time and patience and consistency. And I feel like that's really symbolic of, like, doing things out of consistency instead of doing things like in a manic state, you know? So, anyway, I've been talking for a while. I'm gonna go to bed now. It was good to catch up. Bye.